The fluorescent lights of the diner buzzed like angry wasps above my head, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made the grease stains on my apron look even worse than they already were. My feet throbbed inside my worn sneakers. The left one had a hole near the toe that I'd covered with duct tape 3 days ago. The tape was peeling now, curling at the edges where dishwater had seeped through during my double shift. I wiped down the same table for the 3rd time, my cloth moving in mechanical circles over the cracked vinyl. The diner smelled like burnt coffee, old fryer oil, and the pine-scented cleaner that never quite masked the underlying staleness of a place that had seen better decades. Outside, rain pelted the windows, turning the Portland street into a blur of gray and neon. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced toward the kitchen where Marcus, my manager, was arguing with the line cook about portion sizes. His back was turned. I pulled out my phone, fingers trembling slightly from exhaustion. Baby's crying again. Fever's not going down. Need you home. My chest tightened. Emma was only 8 months old, and this was the 3rd fever this month. I typed quickly, hands shaking now for a different reason. Can't leave yet. Stuck until closing. I pulled up my location and hit send. Come get me at 11. Please. I can't take the bus with her like this. I shoved the phone back in my pocket and returned to wiping tables, my mind already calculating how much the doctor's visit would cost, how many shifts I'd need to cover it, whether the landlord would accept late rent again. The bell above the door chimed. I didn't look up immediately. The diner was nearly empty at this hour. Just old Joe in his usual corner booth nursing his 4th coffee, and a couple of truckers at the counter. Another late-night customer wasn't unusual, though most people had the sense to stay out of the rain. But something made me glance toward the entrance. And everything stopped. 3 men stood in the doorway, water dripping from their expensive coats onto our cheap linoleum. But it was the one in the center who made the air change, who made the fluorescent lights seem dimmer somehow, as if the room itself was holding its breath. He was young, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pushed back from a face that belonged in magazines, not in this forgotten corner of Portland. His coat was black and perfectly tailored, probably worth more than I made in 6 months. Beneath it, I caught a glimpse of a charcoal suit, a crisp white shirt, no tie. But it wasn't his looks that froze me in place. It was the way he carried himself, the way the 2 men flanking him, broad-shouldered, alert, hands resting near their waists in a way that suggested weapons, scanned the diner like Secret Service agents. The way he didn't look around nervously like normal people do when entering a new place. He simply stood there, utterly still, utterly comfortable, as if he owned everything his eyes touched. And his eyes were touching me, dark eyes, unreadable, fixed on me with an intensity that made my pulse spike. "We're about to close," I heard myself say, my voice smaller than I intended. He didn't respond, just continued looking at me, his gaze moving slowly from my face down to my stained apron, my worn jeans, my taped sneakers, then back up. Not leering, assessing. Like I was a puzzle he was solving. One of his men, the one on his left with a scar across his eyebrow, leaned in and murmured something. The man in the center didn't acknowledge him, didn't even blink, just kept staring at me. Then he moved. His footsteps were nearly silent despite the rain he tracked in. Expensive shoes on cheap linoleum shouldn't sound like that, shouldn't sound like a predator approaching. The 2 men stayed near the door, their backs to us, watching the street outside through the rain-streaked windows. He slid into the booth directly in front of where I stood, his movements liquid and controlled. Up close, I could smell him, something expensive and woody, cedar maybe, mixed with rain and something darker, something that reminded me of leather and smoke. "Coffee," he said. His voice was low, quiet, but it carried a weight that made it impossible to ignore. No please, no question mark. Just an expectation of obedience. My hands shook as I grabbed the pot from the warmer. I approached his table carefully, like you'd approach a beautiful but dangerous animal. As I poured, I noticed his hands on the table, strong, elegant, with a heavy silver ring on his right hand that caught the light, no wedding band. Why was I noticing that? "You sent me your location," he said. The coffee pot slipped. I caught it, but not before a few drops splattered onto the table. I grabbed my cloth, wiping frantically, my mind reeling. What? I don't... 37 minutes ago, he pulled out a phone, not an iPhone, something sleeker, more sophisticated, and turned it toward me. You texted this number your exact coordinates and asked to be picked up at 11. My blood went cold. The screen showed my message, my location pin, but the contact name above it wasn't Marcus, my ex, Emma's father, the person I'd meant to text. It said Dante. I didn't know anyone named Dante. I think there's been a mistake, I whispered, backing away from the table. I meant to text someone else. I'm sorry. I'll just sit down. It wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. But something in his tone made my knees weak, made every instinct scream both danger and compliance. I glanced toward the kitchen. Marcus was gone. The truckers had left while I wasn't paying attention. Even old Joe's booth was empty, his coffee cup abandoned. When had everyone left? I need to get back to work, I said, but I didn't move. You're working 2 jobs. Again, not a question. A statement. The diner and the hotel laundry service on 5th. You have a daughter, 8 months old. Father's not in the picture anymore. Terror bloomed in my chest. How do you... You've been struggling since he left, 3 months behind on rent. Your landlord's threatening eviction. The baby's been sick. He lifted the coffee cup, took a sip, his eyes never leaving mine. You're exhausted, desperate, and you just accidentally sent your location to the wrong number. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Who are you? Someone who doesn't appreciate having his private number in the wrong hands. He set the cup down with deliberate precision. How did you get this number? I don't know. I swear I don't... My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Maybe when I got my phone, it was used, from a pawn shop. Maybe the previous owner. The previous owner, he interrupted, his voice dropping even lower, owed me a considerable debt. He thought he could run. Thought changing his number would make him invisible. A pause. It didn't. Oh God. Oh God. I didn't know, I breathed. Please, I have a baby. I didn't mean to. The bell above the door chimed again. A man entered, younger than Dante, wearing a leather jacket and jeans that still somehow screamed money. He was handsome in a rough way, with a crooked nose that had been broken, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He walked straight to our booth, nodded to Dante, then looked at me. This her? Yes. Want me to... No. Dante's hand moved slightly, a gesture so small I almost missed it. But the other man stepped back immediately, hands raised in submission. Wait outside, Luca. Luca's eyes lingered on me for a moment, assessing, curious, before he turned and joined the 2 men at the door. Now there were 3 guards between me and escape. Please, I whispered. I'll delete the number. I'll throw away the phone. Just let me go back to my daughter. Dante tilted his head slightly, studying me. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the fluorescent lights and the rain hammering the windows. Then he reached into his coat. I flinched. But he only pulled out a small box, dark blue velvet, and placed it on the table between us. Open it. I stared at the box like it might contain a bomb. What is it? A gift. I can't accept. Open it. The command was quieter this time, but somehow more absolute. With shaking hands, I reached for the box. The velvet was soft against my calloused fingers. Too soft. Too expensive. I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in white satin, was a bracelet. White gold or platinum, delicate but clearly expensive, with small diamonds catching the horrible fluorescent light and transforming it into something beautiful. Something that didn't belong in this world of grease stains and burnt coffee. I don't understand, I whispered. Your daughter is sick. You need money for a doctor, for rent, for everything that keeps you awake at night. He leaned forward slightly, and I caught that scent again. Cedar and danger. That bracelet is worth $50,000. It's yours. My hand jerked back from the box like I'd been burned. I can't. That's insane. Why would you? Because you made a mistake, an innocent mistake that put you in my path. His fingers drummed once on the table. a gesture that felt loaded with meaning I couldn't decipher. And I find myself curious about the woman desperate enough to beg her child's father for a ride home, tired enough to send coordinates to a stranger, broken enough to accept help from anyone. "I'm not broken," I said, though my voice wavered. "No." His eyes locked onto mine, dark and fathomless, "But you're close. And I wonder what you'd do to save yourself. To save her." The way he said "her" made my stomach drop. "Don't you dare threaten my baby." For the first time, something flickered across his face. Not quite a smile, but close. "I don't make threats against children. I have..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Certain principles. Then what do you want from me?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I was too terrified and too exhausted to fully process. Outside, a car pulled up, black, gleaming even in the rain, with windows too dark to see through. Dante stood in one fluid motion. He was taller than I'd realized, easily over 6 feet, and the way he moved made me think of panthers, of predators built for the kill. "Take the bracelet," he said. "Sell it. Pay your debts. Take care of your daughter." He buttoned his coat with precise movements. "And keep the phone number." "Why?" He looked down at me, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, I thought I saw something human in those dark eyes, something almost lonely. "Because you'll text me again," he said softly. "Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but eventually, you'll need help that no one else can give you. And when that happens..." He reached out, and I froze as his fingers, warm, surprisingly gentle, tilted my chin up. "I'll be waiting." Then he was gone. The 3 men followed him out into the rain, climbing into the black car that I now recognized as a Mercedes, maybe a Bentley, something too expensive for me to even identify properly. It pulled away, taillights bleeding red into the wet darkness. I stood there, alone in the empty diner, staring at the blue velvet box on the table. At the $50,000 bracelet I couldn't possibly accept, at the phone in my pocket with a number I didn't know, connected to a man I couldn't begin to understand. My hands were still shaking when I picked up the box and slipped it into my apron pocket, the weight of it heavy against my hip, heavy like a chain, heavy like a promise, heavy like the beginning of something I wouldn't be able to escape. I didn't sleep that night. Emma's fever finally broke around 3 a.m, her small body going limp with exhaustion against my chest as I rocked her in the darkness of our studio apartment. The room smelled like baby formula, and the mildew that crept up from the corner near the bathroom, no matter how much bleach I used. Rain continued to hammer against the single window, the streetlight outside casting orange shadows across the peeling wallpaper. The velvet box sat on the kitchen counter, 10 feet away, but I could feel it. Like it was radioactive. Like it was watching me. I'd Googled the name when I got home, my phone's cracked screen making the search results hard to read. Dante Caruso. The images were scarce, a few blurry photos from charity events, always in the background, always surrounded by men in expensive suits. But the articles. God, the articles. Alleged organized crime figure. Under investigation for racketeering, suspected ties to East Coast families. 3 rivals found dead in the Willamette River last year. I'd thrown up in the bathroom sink after reading that last one, careful not to wake Emma. Now, in the pre-dawn darkness, I studied my daughter's face. She had Marcus's nose, my eyes. She deserved so much better than this. Better than a mother who was one emergency away from homelessness. Better than a father who disappeared the moment the pregnancy test came back positive. Better than a life that started in a moldy studio apartment in the worst part of Portland. The bracelet could change everything. $50,000. I could pay off the rent, take Emma to a real pediatrician instead of the free clinic, maybe even afford a better apartment. Somewhere with heat that actually worked, where the neighbors didn't scream at each other at 2 a.m, where I wouldn't have to choose between electricity and groceries. But it came from a man who had people killed. A man who knew where I lived, where I worked, everything about me. A man whose eyes had looked at me like I was already his. The pawn shop on Morrison Street opened at 9. I was there at 9:15, Emma strapped to my chest in the carrier that was starting to fray at the edges. The shop smelled like dust and desperation. every surface crammed with the discarded pieces of other people's lives. The man behind the counter was in his 60s, with thick glasses and suspicious eyes. He looked at the bracelet, then at me, then back at the bracelet. "Where'd you get this?" "It was a gift." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Some gift." He pulled out a jeweler's loupe, examining the diamonds with an expression that grew more incredulous by the second. "This is real. High quality. You know what this is worth?" "I was told 50,000, he laughed, a short bark of disbelief. "Told right. Maybe more." He set down the loupe, his eyes narrowing. "You steal this?" "No. Because if you did, and I buy stolen goods, it was a gift," I repeated, firmer this time. "Can you buy it or not?" He studied me for a long moment, taking in my worn coat, the baby carrier, the exhaustion probably written across my face. Whatever he saw made him sigh. "I can give you 30,000 cash. Today, no questions." 30,000. 20,000 less than it was worth, but still more money than I'd ever seen in my life. I was about to say yes when the bell above the door chimed. A man entered, not one of the three from last night, but cut from the same cloth. Expensive casual wear, alert eyes, a bulge under his jacket that spoke of concealed weapons. He looked at me, looked at the bracelet on the counter, then pulled out a phone. He didn't say a word, just made a call, murmured something I couldn't hear, and waited. "You know what?" The pawnshop owner's voice had changed, gone nervous and thin. "I just remembered, I don't have that kind of cash on hand. You should probably keep the bracelet," the man by the door said. His accent was slight, Italian maybe. "Mr. Caruso would like a word." Terror and anger warred in my chest. "He's having me followed? He's making sure you're safe." The man's expression didn't change. "There's a car outside. I'm not going anywhere with you. Then he'll come here." A pause. "You want that kind of attention in a place like this?" I looked at the pawnshop owner, who'd gone pale and was slowly backing toward the wall. I looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully against my chest, unaware that her mother had somehow stumbled into a nightmare. I picked up the bracelet and put it back in its box. "Fine." The car was the same one from last night. Sleek, black, windows tinted so dark they were nearly mirrors. The man opened the back door, and I climbed in, clutching Emma protectively. Dante sat in the far corner, dressed differently today. Dark jeans, a black sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent, a watch that caught the morning light. He looked younger somehow, less formal, but no less dangerous. His eyes went immediately to Emma. Something shifted in his expression, softened just slightly. "How old?" 8 months. I held her closer. "And if you think for 1 second, I think," he interrupted quietly, "that you didn't sleep last night. I think you researched me and found exactly what I expected you'd find. I think you're terrified and exhausted, and desperate enough to try selling that bracelet anyway." He tilted his head. "Am I wrong?" I said nothing. "Dave would have cheated you," he continued, nodding toward the pawnshop. 30,000 for something worth 60. And the moment you left, he would have called people I'd rather not deal with. People who'd want to know why a waitress is carrying around jewelry like that. "How do you—" "I know everything about my city. It wasn't a boast, just a fact. I know Dave runs a side business fencing stolen goods. I know the police watch his shop. I know that if you'd sold that bracelet, you'd have been under investigation within 24 hours. My stomach dropped. So what am I supposed to do? You give me something I can't sell. You can sell it. Just not to people like Dave." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. "This is a jeweler in the Pearl District, legitimate, discreet, and under my protection. He'll give you full value, cash or check, your choice. No questions, no police." I stared at the card, then at him. "Why are you helping me?" "I told you, I'm curious." "That's not an answer." For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then his gaze dropped to Emma again, lingering on her small face, with an expression I couldn't read. "I had a daughter once," he said quietly. "She'd be about 3 now. Had." The word hung between us, heavy with implications. "What happened?" I whispered. His jaw tightened. "Her mother thought she could run from me, thought taking my child would keep her safe. give her leverage. His fingers drummed once on his knee. That same gesture from last night. She was wrong. But by the time I found them, he paused, and something raw flashed across his face. There was a car accident. They said it was quick. Oh, God. I'm sorry, I breathed. Don't be. His voice had gone cold again, empty. Her mother made choices, stupid choices. She paid for them. His eyes locked onto mine, but my daughter paid more. The silence in the car was suffocating. Outside, Portland moved around us, people walking to work, cars honking, life continuing as if the world hadn't just tilted on its axis. I would never hurt a child, Dante said finally. Or a mother trying to protect one. That's not who I am. You've killed people. Yes. No hesitation, no shame. People who threatened what's mine, people who broke agreements, who showed disloyalty, who thought they could take from me without consequences. He leaned forward slightly. But never anyone innocent. Never anyone who didn't know exactly what game they were playing. And what game is this? I gestured between us. What do you want from me? I want, he said slowly, to see what you'll do. Whether you'll take the help I'm offering. Whether you'll run, whether you'll be smart or stubborn. His hand moved, reaching out, and I froze as his fingers brushed against Emma's tiny hand. She stirred but didn't wake. I want to know if you're different from the others. The others? Everyone who sees me as a monster or a meal ticket. Everyone who wants something from me or wants to destroy me. His thumb traced a gentle circle on Emma's palm. You looked at me last night like I was death itself, but you also sent your location to a stranger, because you were desperate enough to hope anyone might help. That kind of vulnerability, he pulled his hand back. It's either foolish or brave. I haven't decided which. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. I'm neither. I'm just tired. No. His eyes met mine, dark and intense. You're a survivor, like me. The driver's voice came through a speaker. Sir, we have a situation. Dante's expression didn't change, but something sharpened in his posture. What kind? Marcus Chen is at the diner, asking questions about last night, getting aggressive with the staff. Every muscle in my body went rigid. Marcus is there? Your ex. Dante's voice had gone soft, dangerous. The father. He can't know about this, I said quickly. He can't know about you, about any of this. Why not? Because he'll try to use it. He'll think I have money. He'll come back. I stopped, realizing I was clutching Emma too tight. She whimpered, and I forced myself to loosen my grip. Please, just let me handle this. Dante watched me for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Luca, the diner, there's someone there causing problems. A pause. No, just watch. If he touches anyone, breaks anything, or doesn't leave in the next 10 minutes. Another pause. Use your judgment. He hung up. You didn't have to do that, I whispered. Yes, he said quietly. I did. The car started moving, pulling away from the pawn shop. I should have asked where we were going, should have demanded to be let out, should have done 100 things that a smart, sane person would do. Instead, I sat there, my daughter sleeping against my chest, watching the man who'd killed people and lost a child study me like I was the answer to a question he hadn't asked yet. Where are we going? I finally managed. To the jeweler. You need money. You need to take care of your daughter. He settled back into his seat. And I need to make sure you're not stupid enough to try Dave's shop again. I can take care of myself. Can you? It wasn't mocking, just curious. You're 3 months behind on rent, working 2 jobs that barely cover your expenses. Your ex-boyfriend abandoned you both. You bought a phone from a pawn shop that connected you to me. He tilted his head. Tell me exactly which part of that is taking care of yourself. The words stung, because they were true. I'm doing my best, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. I know. And somehow, those 2 words were worse than mockery would have been. They were understanding, sympathy, recognition. That's why I'm helping. Nothing's free. No, he agreed, it's not. So what's the price? Dante looked at me for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he smiled. Barely. Just a slight curve at the corner of his mouth that somehow made him look even more dangerous. "Keep the phone number," he said softly. "And when I call..." He leaned forward, closing the distance between us until I could smell cedar and danger. "You answer." It wasn't a request. It was a claim. The jeweler's shop was tucked into a corner of the Pearl District that smelled like money, the kind of neighborhood where even the coffee shops had marble counters, and the people walking past wore watches worth more than cars. I felt grotesquely out of place in my worn jeans and faded coat, Emma strapped to my chest like a neon sign advertising poverty. Dante's hand settled on the small of my back as we entered, the touch light, but possessive. The jeweler, a thin man in his 50s with perfect silver hair, looked up from behind a glass case filled with diamonds and emeralds. His eyes widened slightly when he saw Dante, and he was around the counter in seconds. "Mr. Caruso, I wasn't expecting..." "This is Stella," Dante interrupted smoothly, his hand still on my back. "She has something to sell. You'll give her fair market value, cash, and ensure complete discretion." The jeweler's gaze shifted to me, reassessing. "Of course." "May I see the piece?" My hands shook as I pulled out the velvet box. The jeweler took it with practiced care, opening it under one of those bright examination lights. His expression shifted immediately, surprise, then calculation, then something like reverence. "This is exceptional work," he murmured, pulling out his loupe. "The diamonds are flawless, VVS 1 clarity, D color grade. The setting is platinum, not white gold." He looked up at Dante. "This is from the Castellano collection, isn't it?" "Yes." Something unspoken passed between them. The jeweler's already pale face went a shade lighter. "I see. Well," he cleared his throat. "Fair market value would be $65,000. I can have that in cash within the hour, or I can wire transfer." "Cash," I said quickly, "please." Dante's hand pressed slightly firmer against my back. "Half cash, half into an account we'll set up. She'll need somewhere secure to keep the money." "I don't need..." I started. "Yes," he said quietly, his breath warm against my ear. "You do. Unless you want to carry $30,000 in cash through Portland with a baby." He was right, and I hated it. The jeweler nodded. "I'll prepare the cash and the paperwork. Please, make yourselves comfortable." He disappeared into a back room, leaving us alone among the glittering cases. I stepped away from Dante's touch, putting space between us, but I could still feel the ghost of his hand like a brand. "The Castellano collection?" I asked. "A gift from someone who owed me a favor." He moved to one of the cases, studying a diamond necklace with absent interest. "I had intended it for someone else. But circumstances changed. Your daughter's mother." His jaw tightened. "No, she never got to wear it." The weight of that statement settled over us. I looked down at Emma, her small fingers curled against my chest, her breath soft and even. I tried to imagine losing her, and the thought was so visceral, so devastating, that I had to close my eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered again. "Stop apologizing." His voice was sharp. "It makes you seem weak." "Maybe I am weak. No." He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his dark eyes made my breath catch. "Weak women don't work 2 jobs to support a child alone. Weak women don't stand up to men like me. Weak women don't survive what you've survived." He stepped closer, and I pressed back against the display case. "You're terrified of me, but you're here anyway. That's not weakness, Stella. That's strength you haven't learned to recognize yet." The way he said my name, like he was tasting it, claiming it, sent a shiver down my spine. "Why do you care?" The question came out barely above a breath. "You don't know me. I know enough." His hand came up and I flinched, but he only tucked a strand of hair behind my ear with surprising gentleness. "I know you smell like vanilla and exhaustion. I know you bite your bottom lip when you're anxious. I know you put your daughter's needs above everything, including your own safety." His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "I know that when you looked at me last night you saw a monster, but you're looking at me differently now." "I'm not..." "You are." His voice dropped lower, intimate. "You're wondering what I want, what I'm really after. Whether I'm as dangerous as the articles say or if there's something else beneath it. My heart was racing. And is there? That, he said softly, depends entirely on you. The jeweler returned before I could process what that meant, carrying a sleek black briefcase and a tablet. The cash is ready. I've also prepared account information with a private bank. Very discreet, completely secure. They'll need some basic information from you, but Mr. Caruso's recommendation carries significant weight. The next hour passed in a blur of paperwork and signatures and numbers that made my head spin. $32,500 in cash, wrapped in neat bundles that looked surreal against the jeweler's antique desk. Another $32,500 in an account that I could access with a card that looked more like a piece of art than plastic. I kept waiting for the catch, for Dante to reveal what this would really cost me. But he just stood there, watching, one hand in his pocket, looking for all the world like a man with nothing but time. We were back in the car when my phone rang. Marcus. My whole body went rigid. Dante noticed immediately, his eyes narrowing. Don't answer it. I have to. If I don't, he'll what? The question was soft but edged with steel. Threaten you? Come to your apartment? Make demands he has no right to make? He's Emma's father. Biology doesn't make him a father. Dante's voice had gone cold. Fathers don't abandon their children. Fathers don't leave mothers struggling alone. Fathers don't show up 9 months later only when they think there might be money involved. The phone kept ringing. How do you know that's why he's calling? Because Luca told me what he said at the diner. He's heard rumors about you being seen with some rich guy. He wants to know if it's true. He wants his cut. Dante's hand shot out, faster than I could react, and plucked the phone from my grip. Let me handle this. No. He answered the call, his eyes locked on mine. This is Dante Caruso. Marcus, I presume. I could hear Marcus's voice through the speaker, sharp with confusion and aggression. Who the fuck are you? Where's Stella? Stella is occupied. You and I need to have a conversation. Like hell. Put her on the phone right now or I swear to God. You'll do what exactly? Dante's voice didn't rise, but something in it changed, went darker. Come to her apartment? Make threats? Try to intimidate a woman with a sick infant because you heard she might have money. A pause. I know who you are, Marcus. I know you owe $12,000 to a loan shark on Burnside. I know you've been fired from 3 jobs in 6 months. I know you told Stella you'd help with Emma, and then disappeared the moment the test came positive. Silence on the other end. Here's what's going to happen, Dante continued, his tone conversational but absolute. You're going to stop calling. Stop showing up at the diner. Stop asking questions about Stella. You're going to forget she exists. And if I don't? Marcus's bravado was thin, cracking. Then I'll pay off your debt to Sal Moretti. And when a man like me pays off another man's debt, that debt transfers to me, with interest. Another pause, and I could almost see Dante's smile. You don't want to owe me money, Marcus. Trust me on that. More silence. Then, who the hell are you? Someone who takes care of what's mine. Dante's eyes never left my face, and Stella is under my protection now. Which means Emma is under my protection. Which means you have 2 choices. Walk away clean, or find out exactly how persuasive I can be when people threaten things I've claimed. The call ended. Dante set my phone down gently on the seat between us, and I realized I'd stopped breathing. You can't just... I started, but my voice failed. I can. I did. He shifted in his seat, angling toward me. And before you argue, before you tell me you can handle him yourself, ask yourself this. Did you want to talk to him? Did you want to explain where the money came from? Did you want him worming his way back into your life, into Emma's life, because he smells opportunity? No. God, no. That doesn't give you the right. I don't care about rights. His hand came up, cupping my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything about him. I care about results. And the result is that Marcus won't bother you again. You're welcome. I should have pulled away, should have been furious, should have demanded he take me home immediately. Instead, I heard myself whisper, "What do you want from me?" His thumb traced my lower lip, and heat pooled in my stomach despite everything. I already told you. I want to see what you'll do, how far you'll let me in. Whether you'll run or stay. His voice dropped to something almost vulnerable. I want to know if you can look at me and see something other than a monster. I don't know what I see, I admitted. That's honest. He leaned closer, and I could feel his breath on my face, smell cedar and rain, and something uniquely him. I can work with honest. Emma chose that moment to wake, her small cry cutting through the tension like a knife. I jerked back, my hands going immediately to soothe her, and Dante retreated to his corner of the car, that wall of control slamming back into place. But I'd seen behind it, just for a second, and what I'd seen terrified me more than anything else. A man who'd lost everything that mattered, who'd built an empire on violence and fear, looking at me like I might be the answer to a loneliness he'd never admit existed. He had the driver take us to a pediatric clinic in the West Hills, the kind of place with leather chairs in the waiting room, and doctors who didn't rush through appointments. Emma was seen within 20 minutes, examined thoroughly by a doctor who actually listened to my concerns, and given a prescription for antibiotics that would have cost me a week's wages at the pharmacy I normally used. Dante paid for everything. I didn't even see him do it. Just tried to pull out my new bank card at the reception desk and was told everything had been handled. When we came out, he was leaning against the car, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian to someone who clearly didn't like what they were hearing. He looked up as we approached, ended the call mid-sentence, and opened the car door for us. "She's okay?" he asked. "Ear infection. The antibiotics should help within 48 hours. Something in his expression eased. "Good." We drove in silence through Portland. Rain starting again, the city gray and familiar and suddenly foreign. Because everything had changed. In less than 24 hours, my entire world had tilted. I had money in an account that felt imaginary. I had a dangerous man's protection, whether I wanted it or not. I had Marcus out of my life, possibly for good, and I had a phone number that felt less like a lifeline and more like a trap. The car pulled up to my apartment building. The chipped paint, the broken intercom, the smell of garbage from the alley, and I'd never felt the contrast more sharply. Dante's world of leather and money and power, and my world of survival and exhaustion and mold. "This is me," I said unnecessarily. "I know." He didn't move to open the door. "Stella." I looked at him. "The account has enough for 6 months' rent, utilities, groceries, medical expenses. Use it. Don't try to give it back or prove you don't need it." His eyes held mine. "And when I call, you answer. What if I don't want to? Then don't." He reached out, tucking that same strand of hair behind my ear again. "But we both know you will." The certainty in his voice should have angered me. Instead, it felt like prophecy. I got out of the car, Emma clutched to my chest, the rain immediately soaking through my coat. I didn't look back as I walked to the building entrance, but I felt his eyes on me every step. Felt them like a touch, like a claim, like a promise of something I couldn't name. The car didn't pull away until I was inside, and when I finally looked out my apartment window, he was gone. But the phone in my pocket felt heavier than ever. 3 weeks passed. Emma's infection cleared within days, just like the doctor promised. I paid my rent in full for the first time in months, watching my landlord's suspicious expression shift to grudging respect when I handed him cash. I bought groceries without calculating every item, replaced Emma's worn crib sheets with new ones that didn't have stains, finally got my phone screen fixed. The money felt real and unreal at the same time, like it might vanish if I acknowledged it too loudly. Dante didn't call. I told myself I was relieved, told myself that maybe he'd lost interest, moved on to whatever dangerous men like him did with their time, told myself the knot of disappointment in my stomach was just anxiety, just leftover adrenaline, just anything other than what it actually was. I was lying to myself, because I checked my phone constantly, because I startled every time a black car drove past the diner, because at night, when Emma finally slept, and the apartment was quiet, I found myself staring at that contact, Dante, and wondering what would happen if I texted first. I never did. Pride, maybe, or fear, or the certainty that reaching out would be crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But on a Thursday night, everything changed. I was closing the diner alone. Marcus had stopped showing up, just like Dante promised, and I'd picked up extra shifts to avoid thinking too much. The rain had finally stopped, leaving Portland smelling like wet pavement and distant ocean. I was counting the register when the bell above the door chimed. 2 men entered. Not Dante's men. I knew that immediately. These men were wrong. Cheap suits trying to look expensive. Eyes that moved too quickly. Smiles that didn't reach past their teeth. One was heavy-set with a shaved head and a neck tattoo. The other was thin, wiry, with a face like a rat. "We're closed," I said, my hand already moving toward my phone in my pocket. "We're not here for food." The heavy-set one's voice was rough, like gravel on metal. "We're here about Dante Caruso." My blood went cold. "I don't know who that is." "Don't lie, sweetheart. We've been watching you." The thin one moved closer, and I backed toward the register. "Seen you getting in and out of his car. Seen him pay your bills. Set you up real nice. That makes you leverage." "I'm nobody to him," I said quickly. "Just someone he helped once, that's all." "Maybe." The heavy-set man pulled out a phone, snapped a photo of me before I could react. "But let's find out, yeah? We send him this? Tell him we've got his little waitress girlfriend and her baby? Don't you dare bring my daughter into this." The fear crystallized into rage, sharp and bright. "She's 8 months old, you sick." The thin one grabbed my wrist, yanking me forward. "Where is she?" "The baby? At home? Give us the address." "Go to hell." He twisted my arm and pain shot up to my shoulder. I cried out, tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. "The address," he repeated, "or we'll make this much worse for you." The heavy-set man's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his expression shifted from confident to uncertain. "Yeah, boss. We got her. At the diner, like you said." A pause. "No. Caruso ain't here. Just the girl." Another pause, but longer this time. "Yes, sir. Understood." He hung up, and something in his eyes had changed, gone calculating. "Change of plans," he said to his partner. "Bring her." "What? No!" I tried to scream, but the thin one's hand clamped over my mouth, his other arm wrapping around my waist. I kicked, fought, but he was stronger, and the heavy-set man was already moving to the door, checking the street. This was it. This was how I died. And Emma, God, Emma would wake up alone, would cry for me, would... The door exploded inward, not opened, exploded. The heavy-set man went flying, crashing into a table that splintered under his weight, and then Dante was there, moving like violence given form, his fist connecting with the thin man's jaw with a crack that echoed through the diner. The thin man dropped me, stumbling back, but Dante was already on him. I'd never seen anyone move like that, precise, brutal, efficient. A knee to the stomach, an elbow to the face. The thin man went down hard, blood streaming from his nose. Luca and 2 other men flooded in behind Dante, weapons drawn. They hauled the heavy-set man to his feet, and I could see now he was missing teeth, his face already swelling. "Salvatore sent you." Dante's voice was calm, almost conversational, as he stood over the thin man. "Didn't he?" The thin man spat blood. "Fuck you." Dante's foot came down on the man's hand. The scream was immediate, high and broken. "Let's try again. Salvatore Moretti sent you to grab Stella, to use her as leverage against me. Yes or no?" "Yes, yes, Christ, he sent us. Said you'd pay anything to get her back, said..." The thin man broke off as Dante's foot pressed harder. "What else did he say? That you've gone soft. That you care about her, about the baby. That it makes you weak." Something flickered across Dante's face, too quick to read. Then he looked at Luca. "Take them to the warehouse. I'll deal with them later." His eyes shifted to me, and the coldness there made me shiver. All of them. The men were dragged out, still bleeding, still pleading. I stood frozen, my wrist throbbing where I'd been grabbed, my whole body shaking with adrenaline crash. Dante approached slowly, carefully, like I might bolt. "Did they hurt you?" I shook my head, then nodded, then couldn't seem to form words. He took my hand gently, examining the red marks already forming into bruises around my wrist. His jaw tightened. "I'm going to kill them," he said quietly. "All of them. starting with Salvatore. No. The word came out strangled. You can't. Emma, if something happens to you because of me, nothing will happen to me. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Angelo, I need a team at Stella's apartment. Now. Full security detail. No one in or out without my authorization. He hung up, then looked at me. Where is she? With my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She watches her when I work nights. Another call. Find apartment 2B. Building manager will have records. Mrs. Chen is watching a baby. Bring them both to the safe house, carefully. He ended the call and turned back to me. Pack a bag. You're coming with me. What? No, I can't just... You can and you will. His hands came up to cut my face, and the gentleness after such violence was jarring. They know about you. About Emma. They'll try again, or someone else will, because I made a mistake. What mistake? I let people see me with you. I let them think you matter. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, and his voice dropped. And you do. That makes you a target. The admission hung between us, weighted with everything we hadn't said. I didn't ask for this, I whispered. I know. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to mine. But it's too late now. You're in my world whether you want to be or not. And I protect what's mine. I'm not yours. Aren't you? His breath was warm against my lips. You kept my number. You thought about calling me every single day for 3 weeks. You lie awake wondering what I'm doing, whether I'm thinking about you too. His eyes opened, dark and intense. Tell me I'm wrong. I couldn't. That's what I thought. He pulled back, his mask of control sliding back into place. Get your things. We leave in 5 minutes. The safe house was in the West Hills, hidden behind gates and trees and enough security to protect a small country. It was beautiful in a cold way, all glass and steel and modern furniture that looked expensive to even breathe near. Emma was already there, sleeping peacefully in Mrs. Chen's arms, unaware that our lives had just been turned inside out. Oh, Stella, Mrs. Chen said, relief flooding her weathered face. These men, they said you were in danger, that we had to come here. I was so worried. It's okay. I took Emma gently, breathing in her baby smell, feeling my heart rate finally start to slow. You can go home. I'm sorry you were scared. These men will take you back, Dante said to Mrs. Chen, nodding to 2 of his guards, and compensate you for your trouble. After she left, it was just us. Me, Emma, and Dante in this fortress of glass and money. There are 4 bedrooms upstairs, he said. Take whichever you want. The kitchen is fully stocked. There's a nursery. I had it set up this afternoon. I stared at him. You had a nursery set up? I knew this might happen eventually, that keeping you at arm's length wouldn't work. He moved to the bar, poured himself something amber from a crystal decanter. Salvatore has been looking for weaknesses since I took over the Eastern Territories. I should have anticipated he'd come after you. Why does he think I'm a weakness? Dante took a long drink, his back to me. Because I've never protected anyone the way I'm protecting you. Never moved assets, never called in favors, never made myself vulnerable. He turned, and the look in his eyes stole my breath. Not since Isabella, his daughter. I'm not her, I said softly. No, you're not. He set down his glass and crossed to where I stood, Emma sleeping between us like a bridge and a barrier. Isabella was innocent, pure. She died because of her mother's choices, because of my enemies, because being connected to me was a death sentence. His hand came up, fingers tangling in my hair. You're different. You're already broken and surviving anyway. You're not innocent, not pure, not untouched by the world's cruelty. And somehow that makes you more precious. I don't understand you. I don't understand myself anymore. His voice was raw, honest in a way that terrified me. I told myself I'd help you and walk away, that you were just a curiosity, a distraction. But then I saw you at the jeweler's, holding your daughter, and I wanted... He stopped, jaw clenching. I wanted what I can't have, what I don't deserve. What do you want? His eyes locked onto mine, and the hunger there was almost physical. Everything. Your trust. Your time. Your presence in my life. His thumb traced my lower lip. Your body, your thoughts, your submission to this thing between us that we're both too stubborn to name. I can't give you that. But my voice wavered. Why not? Because you're dangerous. Because people want to hurt me to get to you. Because my daughter needs a stable life, not... I gestured helplessly at the opulent room, at him, at everything. Whatever this is. This, he said softly, is the safest place in Portland. Safer than your apartment with the broken locks and drug dealers in the alley. Safer than the diner where men can grab you. Safer than anywhere you could run. His forehead touched mine again. I'm not asking you to love me, Stella. I'm not even asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to let me keep you safe. You and Emma both. And what do you get out of it? The knowledge that you're here, that when I close my eyes I can picture you in this house, in my space, carrying my protection like armor. His hand slid to the back of my neck, possessive. The fantasy that maybe, eventually, you'll stop looking at me like I'm a monster and start seeing the man who would burn this city down to keep you safe. I should have said no. Should have grabbed Emma and run as far as my legs could carry me, but I was tired. So tired of struggling alone, of being afraid, of pretending I didn't feel the pull between us that defied logic and sanity. 1 week, I heard myself say. Let me stay 1 week until it's safe. Then we figure out what happens next. His smile was slow, dangerous, victorious. 1 week. He sealed it with a kiss, not on my lips, but on my forehead, soft and reverent, and somehow more intimate than anything else. And I knew, even then, that 1 week would never be enough for either of us. The week dissolved like sugar in rain. Days blurred into nights in the safe house. And I stopped counting time in hours, started measuring it in moments instead. Emma's first laugh that made Dante's entire expression soften. The morning I found him in the nursery at 3 a.m., standing over her crib with an expression of such raw longing it made my chest ache. The afternoon he taught me how to shoot, his body pressed against my back, his hands guiding mine, his breath warm against my neck as he murmured instructions that had nothing to do with firearms. I learned things about him in fragments, pieces he let slip when his guard dropped. He'd grown up in Boston, son of a man who built an empire on fear and blood. He'd watched his father die when he was 19, a rival's bullet, a message that violence always came home eventually. He'd inherited everything, the business, the enemies, the weight of a legacy built on broken bones and silence. He'd met Isabella's mother at a charity gala. She was a socialite, beautiful and ambitious, and she'd wanted the power that came with his name. He'd been young enough to believe love could exist in his world, young enough to think a child might save them both. He'd been wrong. She took Isabella to punish me, he told me one night, rain hammering the floor-to-ceiling windows while Emma slept upstairs. We sat in the darkness of the living room, his body stretched on the leather couch, my head resting against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I'd refused to let her control the business, refused to make her legitimate in ways that mattered. So she ran, took my daughter, and disappeared. His fingers traced absent patterns on my shoulder, and I could feel the tension in his muscles. I found them 3 months later, but she was desperate by then, paranoid. She'd hired security, people I didn't know, people who didn't understand who they were working for. His voice went hollow. There was a chase. High speed on the interstate. Her driver panicked, lost control. The car went through a guardrail. I pressed closer, my hand flat against his chest. Isabella was 2 years old. The impact killed her instantly. Her mother survived long enough to tell me it was my fault, that loving me had destroyed her. A pause, heavy with old grief. She was right. No, I whispered fiercely. She made choices. Terrible choices. That's not on you. Isn't it? His hand cupped my face, tilting it up so I had to meet his eyes in the darkness. Everyone I've ever cared about either betrays me or dies. My father. Isabella. Even my mother couldn't survive the life my father built. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. And now there's you. You and Emma. And I know, I should let you go before my world destroys you too. But I can't. God help me, Stella, I can't. The confession hung between us, raw and desperate. Then don't, I breathed. He kissed me then. Not gentle, not careful. Hungry, possessive, like he was trying to consume every piece of me. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I went willingly, drowning in cedar and heat and the taste of expensive whiskey on his tongue. We'd been circling this for days. Stolen touches, loaded glances, the weight of unsaid words pressing down until breathing felt impossible. But neither of us had crossed the line, both too afraid of what would happen when we finally admitted this wasn't protection or convenience or gratitude. This was obsession. His mouth moved to my neck, teeth grazing the sensitive skin there, and I gasped, my fingers digging into his shoulders. "Dante, tell me to stop." His voice was ragged against my throat. "Tell me you don't want this, and I'll let you go. I'll set you up somewhere safe, somewhere far from me, and I'll never touch you again." I should have said it. Should have been smart. Instead, I pulled his face back to mine and kissed him like the world was ending. We didn't make it upstairs. He took me there on the couch, his hands everywhere, my clothes disappearing, his following. And when he finally pushed inside me, I cried out, not from pain, but from the overwhelming rightness of it. The way our bodies fit like they'd been designed for this exact moment. He moved slowly at first, his forehead pressed to mine, his eyes locked on my face like he was memorizing every expression. "Mine," he whispered against my lips. "Say it." "Yours," I breathed, and felt something inside me crack open. Something I'd been holding closed since Marcus left, since Emma was born, since I'd learned that the world was cruel, and love was a luxury I couldn't afford. But this wasn't love. This was darker, more desperate. This was two broken people clinging to each other in the wreckage of their lives, and calling it salvation. And it was everything. The attack came on the 8th day. I woke to the sound of gunfire. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. The sharp cracks echoing through the house couldn't be real, couldn't be happening. But then Dante was there, dressed in black, a gun in his hand, his face hard with controlled violence. "Stay down," he ordered, already moving toward the door. "Don't leave this room. Don't open the door for anyone but me." "What's happening?" "Salvatore." His jaw clenched. "He's making his move." More gunfire. Closer now. Shouting. The sound of glass shattering somewhere downstairs. "Emma." Panic clawed up my throat. "She's in the safe room with 2 guards. She's protected." He crossed back to me, cupped my face with one hand while the other still held the gun. "I will come back to you, I promise. But if I don't, if something happens, there's a car in the garage, keys in the ignition. Drive to the address programmed in the GPS. Ask for Angelo. He'll take care of you." "Don't you dare," I choked out. "Don't you dare make promises and then die on me." Something fierce flashed in his eyes. He kissed me hard, fast, tasting like coffee and determination. "I don't break my promises." Then he was gone. The next 20 minutes were the longest of my life. I pressed myself into the corner of the bedroom, a lamp clutched in my shaking hands like a weapon, listening to the sounds of battle rage through the house. More gunfire, shouting, an explosion that rattled the windows, silence that was somehow worse than the noise. Then footsteps on the stairs. I raised the lamp, ready to fight, ready to die if it meant buying Emma more time. The door opened. Dante stood there, blood on his shirt. Not his, I realized with dizzy relief, his gun still in hand. Behind him, Luca and 3 other guards, all armed, all alive. "It's over," Dante said quietly. I dropped the lamp and ran to him, my hands pattering over his chest, his face checking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did they—" "I'm fine." His arms came around me, crushing me against him despite the blood, despite everything. "You're safe. Emma's safe. That's all that matters." "Salvatore?" "Dead." No emotion in his voice, just fact. "He came himself. Arrogant bastard thought he could take my home, take you, and I'd negotiate." A pause. "I don't negotiate. I should have been horrified, should have recoiled from the casual way he spoke of killing. Instead, I just held him tighter. The cleanup took hours, bodies removed, blood scrubbed from marble floors, broken glass replaced, Dante made calls in rapid Italian, his voice sharp with authority, restructuring his organization now that Salvatore's faction was eliminated. I sat in the nursery with Emma, rocking her while she slept, trying to process the fact that men had died tonight because of me. Because Dante had claimed me. He found me there near dawn, the sky outside just starting to lighten. He looked exhausted, older somehow, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. "We need to talk," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. "Okay." He sat on the floor beside the rocking chair, his back against the wall, and for a moment, he just looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully in my arms. "This won't be the last time," he said finally. "Someone will always see you as a weakness, as leverage, as a way to hurt me." His eyes met mine. "I can protect you. I have the resources, the power, the willingness to do whatever it takes. But it means staying in this world, accepting what I am, what I do, never being fully free of the violence that follows me. And if I can't accept that," pain flickered across his face, "then I'll let you go. Set you up somewhere far from here, somewhere my enemies can't find you. You'll have money, security, everything you need to give Emma a good life." He swallowed hard. "But I won't be part of it." The choice he was offering was clear: safety with him, or safety from him. I looked down at my daughter, at her perfect small face, and thought about the life I wanted for her. Stability, peace, a mother who wasn't constantly afraid. Then I looked at Dante, at the man who'd killed to protect us, who carried his dead daughter's memory like an open wound, who'd looked at me in a greasy diner and decided I was worth saving. "I'm tired of running," I said softly. "Tired of struggling alone. Tired of pretending I don't feel this." I gestured between us. "Whatever this is." "Obsession," he supplied quietly. "Possession. A need that defies logic." "Yes." I took a shaky breath. "All of that. And I know it's not healthy, not normal, not what I should want, but I do want it. I want you. Even knowing what it means." He stood slowly, crossed to where I sat, and dropped to his knees in front of the rocking chair. His hands covered mine where they cradled Emma. "I will protect you both with everything I have," he said, his voice low and intense. "I will give Emma everything she needs. Education, security, a future free from the sins of my past. I will never let anyone hurt you again. And I will try, God, Stella, I will try, to be worthy of this choice you're making. I'm not asking for worthy." I freed one hand to cup his face, feeling the stubble rough against my palm. "I'm asking for honest, for present, for yours. You have all of that." He turned his face to press a kiss to my palm. "You've had it since the moment you walked into that diner with exhaustion in your eyes and hope you were too tired to hide. Then ask me." He knew what I meant. His eyes searched mine for a long moment. Then, "Stay. Be mine. Let me be yours. Build something with me that isn't built on fear or desperation or survival, but on choice." His hand moved to cradle Emma's head with heartbreaking gentleness. "Let me be a father to her, not to replace what she's lost, but to give her what she deserves." The tears came then, hot and unexpected. "Yes." The word was simple. The implications were not. But as Dante rose and kissed me, gentle this time, reverent, like I was something precious instead of broken, I felt something shift. Some weight I'd been carrying since Marcus left, since I'd found myself alone and pregnant and terrified, finally lifted. I wasn't alone anymore, and maybe that was worth the danger. Worth the violence that would always lurk at the edges of Dante's world. Worth the risk of loving a man who dealt in death and power and dark things I'd never fully understand, because he'd looked at me when I was invisible and seen someone worth protecting, and I'd looked at him when he was a monster and seen someone worth saving. 6 months later, I stood in the nursery of our new home, not the safe house, but a sprawling estate in the hills with gardens and security and enough space for Emma to run when she was older. Dante had insisted on buying it, had spent weeks obsessing over details, the best school district, proximity to hospitals, enough land to ensure privacy. Emma was walking now, stumbling around in that drunk toddler way that made my heart swell. She adored Dante, reached for him the moment he came home each evening, called him Dada, even though I gently tried to explain he wasn't. "Let her call me whatever she wants," he'd said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm the one who'll be there. That makes me her father." Now, watching him on the floor building blocks with her, making exaggerated sounds that sent her into peals of laughter, I couldn't remember why I'd ever been afraid. He looked up, caught me watching, and smiled, that rare, genuine smile he reserved for moments like this. "Join us?" I lowered myself to the floor, Emma immediately crawling into my lap. Dante's hand found mine, fingers lacing together, his ring heavy on my left hand, where he'd placed it 3 months ago in a private ceremony that consisted of us, a judge, and Luca as witness. "Happy?" he asked quietly. I thought about the woman I'd been, desperate, exhausted, invisible. I thought about the text message sent to the wrong number that had changed everything. I thought about the journey from that fluorescent-lit diner to this moment, all the violence and fear and impossible choices that had brought me here. "Yes," I said, and meant it completely. "I'm happy." Emma babbled something incomprehensible and knocked over the tower of locks. Dante laughed, a real laugh, unguarded and warm, and started building again. And in that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of our old lives and the foundation of something new, I finally understood what Dante had meant all those months ago. He hadn't saved me. We'd saved each other, and that made all the difference.